Good morning and welcome to episode number 2 of the Digital Marketing Breakthrough. Whether you're a small business owner curious about modern marketing or a creative person looking to start or help businesses, these are the thoughts, techniques, and experiments to keep your knowledge base growing. Good morning. My name is Phil Metzger. I own a digital and video marketing company, and my curiosity takes me anywhere related to success in those areas. In this episode, we are going to be going over how a Google search works. And stick around until the end, and I will give you 2 simple things you can do today to improve your Google ranking. It is early in the week here. It's a Tuesday morning. Once again, hopefully the podcast will be approved here shortly, and we can begin doing this over podcasts and maybe even on Facebook Live once I also get some more equipment coming in, or maybe even YouTube Live. I haven't quite decided that yet, but I do like the interactivity or the potential there for Facebook. So how am I doing right now? And I'm going to actually set a timer on this because I don't want to go on too long because I want to bring you all the information, but I do want to say that it has been unbelievable, the response with what is going on right now. And I actually try to limit my social media time, pick who I follow very closely. It's something that is important to me, just in order to keep my sanity and to not get too worked up about things. But this is more about the business opportunity and what the landscape is going to look like once life begins to return to normal a little bit. Obviously, there is some relief or announced relief coming for small businesses, which is a huge portion of the audience who I hope to be affecting here, or people that are looking to get into small businesses anyways. And so it appears that some relief is coming, but no one's really sure. But one thing is for sure is this is going to continue lasting a little bit longer. I'm in New York, and so we are supposedly getting ready to hit the most vicious 2 weeks. We will see counts double, triple in New York. And so it's obviously scary. I actually had my first friend of a friend, two people off, pass away from the virus. I'm still waiting to hear the details, but it appears he was in good health. And of course, thoughts and prayers to everyone out there that's going through anything having to do with this terrible virus. And getting our nation happy and healthy is obviously the number one priority. But how people are using their time right now, whether they're actually staying at home where they're considered an essential business, or they're just going out and conducting business anyways. How you spend your time now and how you come out on the other side of this is going to be very, very important. Basically, what I do is I help people gain exposure for their business or cause. And I love the digital platforms. As we went over in the intro episode, I went to school for audio engineering. I fell in love with photography. The video camera and the study of light transferred well from photography over to video. I love what I do. I fell in love with marketing and just the way people interact. Sociology and psychology have always been 2 fascinations of mine, something that I do listening on and reading on the side. So I felt like with video specifically, I was a little bit ahead of the curve, and it would take the rest of the world about 3 to 5 years to catch up with me. Excuse me. And I think that this time off, people are realizing that digital usage and a digital presence are more important than ever. It's going to continue to be important, and there's no more denying it. There are so many businesses and so many industries that may only have 1 or 2 in your local area, if you're a product or service that's dependent on the local market. Just 1 or 2 that are even starting to dip their toe in improving their digital presence and how that can help them. Well, I think that is now being expedited. And for those people that are hungry enough to explore it and to dive in and say, okay, this is what I need to be done, to whether it be rely and learn yourself, depend on other people like me, depend on someone that's younger, just ask the questions, or even know how to ask the questions. If you are someone that can really understand this opportunity, should you and your loved ones come through healthy enough, to take this, run with it, not treat this as just time to relax, time to reflect. All that is very good. There needs to be a lot of that going on. Don't get me wrong. But those of you that spend your your days and your extra hours that you have to yourself working on how to improve your digital presence, how you build community in today's age, those are the people that are going to end up ahead and see tremendous growth over the next year or two. Now, obviously, you want to have a good set of principles and values that you operate by in your business. You know, if you have a crappy business, that might take off as well. But I think purest of intentions, people coming together, more respect for one another, and people that are on top of their digital game are really going to come through and succeed. So I was able to do that all under 5 minutes, and so I'm feeling good about that. So now we can get on with the episode. And just an update as far as, what's been going on with me. It actually really applies to this week's episode. Last week was an absolutely crazy week. It was actually the first week that I overcommitted just a little bit. I got so excited with the opportunities that were coming to me, and these are quality opportunities with people I really respect. So I wanted to get it all in. It was a tough week, but I actually was able to create 2 promotional videos and 2 websites last week, both of which will be coming out on my networks if you care to see those. But it applies because this week we are talking about how Google works. And when you talk about kind of the fuel for the internet, it really kind of starts with Google if you don't know where to start. Unless you have a business card or some kind of reference, or maybe you're using social media and you get links, or whatever for your cause or whatever you're going for, the website really should be the home of where your information lies. And the best way, if someone is looking for you or to find you, is Google. We'll go through why. We'll go through how Google finds you, how it ranks, and some things you can do to improve that, and to ask if you're not the one that designs your website. Maybe, you should be asking some questions if just something's not seeming right or people are not coming through with their promises. Now, I will say the only metric that I go by and supply, which is really shocking to me, is just by the amount of visits and the increase in a business's profit when I come in. So those are my 2 main metrics, and I really thought I'd have to dive deep into who's clicking what and where, and all over, and all about click funnels and things like that. And those things can work, and they are a strategy, and they are important, especially more on the, I would say, product side of things than service side of things. But let's just dive into how Google works and what you can do. So, actually, I forgot a segment that I told I was going to do. It's just definition of the day. I almost always want to keep this having to do with small business marketing or creativity or something on the digital side. But today's word is altruism. And as we talked about earlier with the curtain situation, altruism is an unselfish regard or devotion for the welfare of others. Charitable acts motivated purely by altruism. That's how you use it in a sentence. Need to put a period there. But anyways, it's just understanding that even though you are spending your time inside, we all might be starting to see those people that are starting to be affected right now. So please just do your part. Stay in, find these new techniques that might work for you, and just do it for, do it for our country, do it for the world. Just help stop the spread. So on with it. How does Google work? Well, I have now designed 5 web pages, and I was pretty excited when this question was answered as far as what you all want the first episode to be about. I was pretty excited when Google was the answer. But in order to understand what happens when you type in a keyword, or what happens when you type in something into the search bar, you need to understand how it works. And some people say this is the algorithm, but that's not exactly true. There are basically 3 parts to how Google works. I will include all the tips at the end of this. I just want to run through very quickly how it works, and maybe apply some information for yourself, or some information for you to ask your web host. And then also real quick, why Google is the search engine, why Google is Google. It's simply the best because it is the service that most people use. And I'm not saying it's the best search engine, but simply because they have the most data coming through, they have the most users, no matter what algorithm you use, if your goal is to get people the website that they're looking for, the more information you have on past search history and who clicks on what, I mean, that's just simply going to be the best platform. So, but anyways, there are three basic elements as far as what happens when you search on Google. That is crawling, indexing, and serving and ranking. And I'll try to go through these while hitting the main points, and then we'll kind of go through just what you need to do. So anyways, crawling is first. First of all, there's no central database of web pages. There's no place where all the web pages are held, and then that's where people go. The internet is spread over thousands of computers, and that's how, this advanced encryption really works, because there's no one piece of data really in one specific place for all the websites. So the internet is open to everyone, and there are plenty of ways to create a site with web hosts. I use Wix. I've looked extensively into Squarespace and WordPress. There are many others out there, but if you decide to use one of these web hosts, you'll be fine, I think. Unless you know an advanced language, there's not too much more you need to look into that. But Google uses a process called crawling, and crawling is searching through how a website flows, like from link to link. It's basically a map of where your website is, and then what pages are connected to it. So it wants to be able to flow through your website and know, okay, do I take, basically, it's a map, do I take a left or right here? If I click on this, does it go to another page? Is this even clickable? Just things like that. It just identifies the basics to help the navigation through your website. When and how does it crawl? So it crawls, which is searching through your website, anytime a new page is being built off of an existing page. So if you add a new page to your website, an about section or a contact us section, once you add that on, Google will come back through and crawl that section to see what all is clickable, identifiable, etc., etc. You can use a sitemap, which I don't think anybody I deal with is going to really be using a sitemap, or I'm not going to be building one that uses a sitemap. This is designed for people that have over 500 links and pages, things that have just a huge database to where it tells Google how to look through the website. It tells it how to navigate. It's that map. It's legitimately a site map of how the website works. But when you do use a web host, I know with Wix anyways, it automatically, every time you submit your page, it automatically submits a request to Google to crawl the page and search it out to use the best information. Once again, I'll include all the tips on this. I just want to get through this quickly. Next is indexing. Out of the three, we have crawling, indexing, and serving. Indexing is where Google attempts to understand what the page is actually about. It analyzes the content of the page, it catalogs the images and videos embedded in the page, and it's stored in the Google Index. And that is what Google actually uses as their kind of database for what is what. What is this a picture of? What is this paragraph saying? So what you can do, or what needs to be done just in order to make sure that it indexes properly, or that you get found for what you're looking to get found for as far as indexing goes, is to create short, meaningful page titles. So don't get complicated, kind of like a newspaper heading. You don't want to go on a huge rant, in your line that you have limited space. You want to get to the point, because one thing that happens when people search the page, we've all read something that says the start to a sentence and then just ... You want 3 to 7 words that really get to the point of what you are getting ready to talk about. Also use the page headings to convey the subject of a page. And this is kind of getting into, I guess, the topic of each paragraph. You can go in, and in Wix it makes it really easy, which is one of the biggest advantages for that. But you really want to convey the purpose of the page and stick to what's relevant. And then this is actually from Google. I'll go ahead and quote this as far as how they advise using indexing. Use text rather than images to convey content. Google can understand some image and video, but not as well as it can understand text. At minimum, annotate your videos and images with alt text and other attributes as appropriate. And this is where keywords comes in, and also where things are starting to change. So I'm sure you've heard of keywording, or make sure your stuff is properly keyworded, and I'm sure it's one of those scary terms that could have even been the term of the day. But I'm sure it's scary to a lot of people just because they don't understand how it works. First of all, you might not even understand technology or how websites work at all, but now you have to go back and research words and place words strategically. Well, it's really just about understanding those words that are relevant to what people might search for you. Okay, so I will use, if I was a marketing company specifically based where I am living right now, Nyack, New York, I would definitely want to use marketing, media, big builder brands, Rockland County, Nyack, New York. These are some things that when people search, media company, Rockland County, New York, marketing company, Nyack, New York. Nyack's my town, obviously Rockland's the county. But you want to identify these words and really think about these words that people might be searching for related to your industry. There are definitely some tools out there, and I can definitely link to some other people that speak more about this, or even some of the techniques I've used in the past. But right now, we're just going to kind of keep flowing through this a little bit. Now, they say the text is the most important aspect, and I do not doubt that the text on a web page is the most important aspect of it. It helps to have verbiage that flows, that is relevant, and that makes sense. And Google reminds us that a human is the end user, and Google points to those pages that make sense and get the biggest response for what is searched. So they don't want you to go through and just consistently repeat Nyack, New York, media, marketing, Rockland County. Like, you have to have it flow. And just keep in mind, the people that might be searching for what you're actually providing, and write for those people. Okay, so now to the video portion. Sorry, I got held up there trying to make sure I got through my notes talking about video. But I don't know if anybody's noticed, but Google is now using YouTube clips as the top search answer for a lot of things, especially on how-tos. When you type in something, it will not only suggest a YouTube video or a video from Vimeo or maybe even natively uploaded, but it will suggest a portion of the video. It will take a clip from that video to potentially answer your question. And when you're on your website, you can keyword these images and videos, which means there's an option to type in. If I put up this video, I could do Digital Marketing Breakthrough, Episode 2, Nyack, New York. And then the next picture could be Rockland County Podcast. You just want to have variations on these keywords that make sense for what you're showing. But I just thought it was so interesting that video is taking over as such a huge part of how people bring in information, that text, of course, it's easy. It has to be easier to index, rather than actually analyzing an audio or video clip. But I think, definitely have some video in there, or at least some good imagery where you can. Just helps make a more friendly user experience. And so the last of those three is serving and ranking. And Google tries to find the highest quality answers or pages based on language, location, and devices. This is where the algorithm comes in, and no one really knows how it works. But, they say it's based on language, location, and devices. Okay, cool. They know you're speaking English, and I'm sure by language they could also just generally mean the way you phrase things. Location, if I type in local media company, it's going to be very different when I'm here than when I'm across the country. And then devices, you have to make sure it's mobily optimized. If your site's not quick enough and it's not available on mobile devices, or isn't optimized for mobile devices, you're really going to be in a little bit of trouble, because the majority of web traffic comes from mobile devices now. And Google will just they won't put you up there if you don't have a site that works. So now it's on to the tips. Now that everyone kind of got a very, very, very brief rundown on how Google works, now it's just kind of some tips and some things you can do just to make sure that you're giving yourself the best chance possible. Excuse me. First of all is make sure your website is up to date. Make sure that it has relevant information, that all the links work. You know, if you change your social handles, if you just started using social handles, if you've changed your web address, your physical address, your phone number, just make sure all of the basics are covered. And then also make sure your page loads fairly quickly and is mobile friendly. Just have to do it. Your web page is your hub for anything that is you or your company digitally. Yes, you can build a community off of your social media platforms, and your social media platforms can be found by Google. But with one single page having the most important information about you or your company, and all of the links that provide information about you or what you do, all your social links, any articles, any interviews you did that is on another source, anything that can come back to you and prove you or your company as the go-to figure or authority for what people are typing in, it's going to help. And it really needs to be the base of your company. I mean, we're going to go through a tip here in a little bit about, making sure you're doing things to get found, just a couple tips, but people need that cornerstone and they expect that cornerstone. When you provide a company, they're going to go to your website, they're going to see how it looks, they're going to make sure they can read it, which all just goes back to if it doesn't flow, if it doesn't make sense, if it's not relevant, then you need to go ahead and either attempt to use some of these programs yourself, which let me know and I'll give you my advice, or hire someone. And I can't wait for maybe we'll go over pricing here in a little bit, but how much to pay for a website, but that is something else I wanted to talk about. But just to continue on with this one, stay on track. Just make sure that your homepage is well set, well designed, well worded, and it's just attractive for people that are wanting to visit, and make sure that it's made for people and not Google. I mean, make sure someone wants to stick around and learn more about you. The example that they gave as far as designing it to how people would want to see, or the one that I found that I thought was pretty good, was an example of a recipe. When you look up a recipe or you type in ingredients or however if you've ever tried to find a recipe online, think about the results that come up. It's every single result that you click on. It has the name of the dish, then it has the ingredients, it has the prep time, and then it has the steps. That just makes sense to a human being and how they would do it. And Google now recognizes that that's how people prefer to see it. And so those pages that do it in that kind of human-friendly format, they're the ones that get shown. Just use it for au gratin potatoes last night. It's fantastic. So I actually found this next piece of information. This was provided by Google in their Google Webmaster Guidelines. And I found it interesting that they highlighted it and gave so much attention to it. But they said, do not use a web page for other people's material, photos, videos, etc., for the purpose of linking to another page without providing valuable content on your own. Google Webmaster Guidelines now has a part of their algorithm. It's a feature that detects if there is no original content or if people exit the site if they don't find exactly what they're looking for. So basically, if you just there's a thing called newsjacking, which is a very effective way of keeping relevant news. You essentially find a piece of news and put your spin on it. It's what Facebook is, pretty much. But that is fine if you're giving your own original spin. But Google is now actively seeking out websites and web pages that are simply affiliate links or just have other people's content. If it's a duplicate page, essentially, of something else, what they are saying is that you will be placed far down the list or even removed from their rankings if your web page essentially does not bring original content or value to anyone. So it's not, you don't have to have something complicated or necessarily hire someone to do this if you just need representation, but really think about what makes your company and your website unique, valuable, and engaging. Make your website stand out from others in your field, and that's really why I love marketing and how I knew that I could definitely do this for the rest of my life. And I'll use ADC Paving again. They're my first client, and it's a subject matter that isn't necessarily that engaging. I mean, pavement is not something that people are curious about and search in their off time, want to know how the tar and sand mix and how long it sets. And, the majority of people that own parking lots don't really even know the lifespan, and they don't care. They just want it fixed when they have a problem. But this is where I love taking a business owner, the values or the energy of a company. This is where that combination of values and principles mixed with what you do can really set you apart. If you write something that someone enjoys, it's like they just enjoy reading it. Well, if you put your passion with what you do and then someone reads it and enjoys it and they spend time on your page, that just helps. That helps people find you on Google. It says someone else really liked this. They read all the way through it. They watched the video. They shared it. It really helps. And so if you either have different aspects of business that maybe is unique, maybe you take, I do video production, websites, and marketing. So that's kind of my niche, but I love creativity as well. And I come from that creative aspect. So I think there's an audience out there that if I write for creative people that are looking to be small business owners or maybe marketers, that appeals to them. And that's the type of people I look to attract. And so that's how you design your website. Now, I also have equally become in love with owning a small business and marketing. So it's really the intersection of those three. But instead of necessarily trying to inject my values and principles, I just identifying myself as someone that brings those three areas or those three types of thoughts together: creativity, marketing, and small business. So if you can just find that niche, like a paving company, what's different about paving companies? I mean, they get their supplies from the same plant, the rock from the same plants. They have a choice in materials, but will the end consumer really understand that their materials are better? It's about designing and writing and shooting for how you actually feel and what your customers are actually wanting to hear, whether they know it or not. Like, talk to them. Talk to them is the best piece of advice I could give about ranking, and besides just using those keywords we talked about. All right. Off my soapbox. So think about what you offer, why it's unique, and keyword properly. Now, to two things that you can do that will actually help your Google ranking right now. So when you create a new website, update a page, have a new blog, really anything noteworthy, promote it to your friends and family through your social networks. So basically, it's kind of what going viral is. If you have a new, we'll say About Me section on your webpage, or maybe you wrote a new blog, or you just wrote an About page, but you wrote a really nice synopsis of why you're in business and, what community means to you and all that. Promote that to your social media outlets, because when something is released, if it starts getting hits, if people start visiting the website, start talking about your content, start sharing, that tells Google that people are interested in what you are talking about. It seeks out those keywords and makes sure that it is towards the top or higher on the list when people search for that. And that's why keeping things kind of new and fresh is also important, because if you had something that was super popular 2 years ago, unless people are actively searching for that specific page or article, it's just going to kind of fall down the list a little bit. So don't be afraid when you have something that you want more traffic and that you're proud of, that, you know, your friends and family would want to read, or work associates, whatever, would want to read, make sure to share that link, because that will ultimately help you in the end. And then using Google My Business. This is something that I actually just started doing, not even for myself, but for for ADC Paving. But Google My Business, it really only pops up in 2 places. But the advantage is it's a Google product, and if you use it, I'm 100% sure it helps your ranking. But you will see Google, and it's called Google My Business because you actually need to input this information as a business. But where it's seen, or where you've seen it before, is on the side of Google when you type in a search result, especially if you type for a certain company. On the right-hand side on a desktop, you will see the company, the hours of operations, the times they're open. Some places the times are normally busy. Phone number, you know, it'll say call, website, directions, all that kind of stuff. So that's super nice to have all that information filled out, if, you know, especially if you're a physical location. And also it shows up on maps. Now, if someone uses Google Maps, when they drive by, you know, your store location, it will actually have a little pin or a little icon there that just says you're right there. And then people can click on that to find out, you know, more about you, visit your website, give you a call, whatever. I don't know how much that is actually ever used. I don't know how many times people are driving by a place, want to click on it, go to their website, or know their hours, but it's also there, and why not? But just putting some basic info, and if you type into Google My Business, if you search for Google My Business, it's actually a separate page where you basically just fill out some information. Now, you can also put up photos and posts, and it can't hurt to you know, put a photo or small video on there every once in a while, just to, once again, tell Google that you are active and that you are still doing everything you say that you do. So that's about it. Just make sure that you share those social networks or links and pages, and also use Google My Business. And that also wraps up this episode of the Digital Marketing Breakthrough. For more questions, please message me. Thank you to all responded about which topic they wanted to hear today. I put that question out on Instagram. I am most active on Instagram, and I will be looking at going live here soon on either Facebook and YouTube, but I'm sure I will have representation on both of those platforms. But if you really want to go ahead and get a hold of me directly or see more behind the scenes and stories, you can hit up Big Builder Brands on Instagram. That is all one word, at Big Builder Brands. I am also at Big Builder Brands Network on Facebook. And this has been the This is the Digital Marketing Breakthrough podcast, coming soon. Thanks for joining me, and I hope everyone has a great day.